Every 2 weeks at around about this time on ABC Radio Darwin and the Northern Territory, I'm going to introduce you to another top-notch Territorian, someone who loves this place, who's doing great things in their field of art, science, music, sport, literature, health, research. Great things to make the Territory an even better place to live. Today you're getting to know Sue Moffitt. She's the author of a book, Darwin in the Wet. I talked to her yesterday morning before this morning's nice soaking here in Darwin. Sue, how are you coping? This is the time of year that you are most passionate about and it's let you down.
I know, but we live in a world of extremes in the weather, and it's such a fascinating conversation that it doesn't matter where you live. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's too wet, it's too dry, it's too this, that or the other. And here we are about to be hit with a cyclone, Tropical 5, possibly on both sides of us. And I don't think I'd really want to be there. So, be positive. We're not over in Queensland and we're not over in Borroloola.
Are you feeling like your year is already missing something though, given the state of the wet season this year?
Well, that's not really how I sort of lead my life, really. But
so you're okay.
I'm okay. Yeah,
Even though
I'm still not living in air conditioning.
Even though it's the time of the year that you love the most.
But if I get a little puddle outside or 6 drops come down from the sky, I go, yes, it's coming, and it stops.
Yes,
so I still definitely do that.
That flying wet stuff did come out of the sky for a few moments the other day, and we were quite excited, and it was hardly anything.
I know.
Is there anything in particular, though, that you miss? We've had a few conversations on the radio over the last few weeks about, the dragonflies have appeared early, but the frogs aren't making as much noise, and the magpie geese are having some issues because of the state of the wetlands. Is there anything that you've noticed that's missing that you sort of are quite aware of?
I think what's missing for me mainly is the ferocity of the water crashing down those escarpments in Litchfield mainly. I mean, also in Kakadu. But, they're accessible from Darwin to go down to Wongai and stand on the boardwalk and get soaking wet just from the spray. So that is a missing.
I haven't been to the national parks this season, I have to say. What's it like out there at the moment?
A bit better than the dry season in terms of waterfalls, but you can swim in all the plunge pools, which is a positive.
You're someone whose background is in tourism, and this is another bright point I'm trying to illuminate in this wet season. Does it bode well for a tourism season maybe starting early, that the rains haven't come?
Well, I think yes and no, because people will get the message that places are more accessible. I mean, now you can still do the circular route through Berry Springs into Litchfield and back through, which is, a big plus in terms of being able to do a circle. And that message gets out there to, the wider audience down south. Yes, they'll get it's hot up here, but they'll get accessibility.
When you sell Darwin to southerners and this love of the tropics and the wet season, what is it sort of central to your message about just how great this place is?
Is the smell of the wet season, is the fact that it transforms completely from the dry to the wet. I mean, it's like 2 completely different places. And I just love watching the grass grow, the magpie geese playing in the puddles, the frangipani flowers that just, give off that magnificent perfume. So I think it's the environment that I really, really love, how it just transforms in front of our very eyes,
When did you come to Darwin?
When? 2009.
10 years ago?
Yeah.
Where from?
Sydney.
What brought
England
you here?
Before that.
Yeah.
We decided to retire. I was only in my 50s, and we sold everything we had in Sydney, everything. Took to the road for 5 to 10 years and got here 5 years later, and we're still here.
Did you arrive in the wet season?
Well, we arrived
and
went away, and then we came back to see what the wet season was like. So we were here for the end of 2009, and the wet season then was amazing. The storms, and I was dashing down to Stokes Hill Wharf every 5 minutes to see the storms rolling in and the lightning crashing out over the city. And
you're doing a really beautiful job of describing what it looked like, but why do you think it affected you so?
Well, I think it was exciting and scary, combination of the two. And I don't think I'd never seen anything like it before. It was just so unique to me.
And what had people told you to expect from a wet season? Was it negative or positive?
Nothing really. I just wanted to come because people don't typically come up here in the wet season, and I thought, well, then I'm going there. When I travel, I like to go where people don't go.
And have you seen in the last decade, do you think there's been success in promoting the wet season as a tourist destination? I think I can, or as a time to visit. I can remember a few years ago, the tourism campaign, they were trying to call it a different name.
Yeah, they've tried the green season.
The green season. And there was something else as well, though, like wet summer or something like that. I don't know. There was another. Can you recall the other one?
No, I don't think it's tropical summer.
Tropical summer. There was something like that. But the green season. Have any of those attempts sort of worked, do you think, to attract tourists?
Well, from my sort of personal experience and interaction with tourists who do come up here this year, through this time of the year, I have sold books to people overseas and down south because they wanted to come here in February, March, to see the storms. I even sold a book to a guy in Perth who's a photographer who comes up here regularly to photograph the storms. The GAN runs trips up here and people spend 5 days. They typically come up on the train, spend 4 or 5 days up here, trip off again. So my experience is that people are coming here. I don't know whether the tourism numbers show that people are coming here or not.
Is the green season a good way to describe the season, do you think, like as a marketing kind of ploy?
I think I just like to see it marketed as the tropics.
Yeah, and visit the tropics all of the time. All of the seasons are good.
Yeah, rather than trying to split the two systems into this is the dry and you got to come and this is the wet. Oh, be careful.
Yeah. Visit the tropics is it.
Yeah. I mean, you go to Asia and you go to Bali and all these other places and you don't go, can't go there, it's wet.
And I think people don't even consider that there's those two extreme seasons in those part of the tropics. They just go Bali, holiday, excellent, and then maybe experience a surprise when they get there and it's monsoonal. But they're still willing to just make that holiday visit because it's the tropics.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think if we marketed it as the tropics, people would get when it's hot. So it doesn't even matter if it rains. You can run around the mall in your T-shirt.
Yeah, or naked if you're a small person, as they tend to like to do. I've got a little one who likes to get naked in those fountains in the mall.
Right.
So I think I saw you signing books in the mall a couple of weeks ago, which was delightful to see. Who were you lined up with then?
Lined up with the bookshop. And we had 3 female authors who are Darwin authors because it was International Women's Day. So we linked International Women's, or the bookshop, linked International Women's Day with the visit of the Queen Victoria cruise ship. So there was loads of people milling around the mall. It was really nice to have 3 of us there for people to come and interact with, because when you're sitting there on your own, it's not quite the same. And they had a really
Especially
great
if no one comes over.
Yeah, that's right.
But the 3 of you there could sort of have a chat.
But yeah, we interacted off each other. We interacted with the cruise ship people. People came down and sat and talked to us and wanted to know where the chemist was and blah, 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 blah. And we sold books.
And you were with Sandra
Kendall and Jo, I can't remember her surname.
Sandra Kendall, who does those beautiful illustrations of territory
children's books.
Got a few at home. The pictures are beautiful. Were people really interested to have this access to really territory literature and books and photos?
Yeah. And Jo sold quite a few. She's written a memoir of her life growing up in the bush. That's a typical sort of top-end bush story. So they were people off the cruise ship who went, I really want to understand the background of the people who live here. And I sold a few books to people who wanted a souvenir of Darwin,
Nice to hear about those initiatives that are working, that aren't sort of government-driven or, oversold maybe, just a simple couple of authors telling their stories and sharing their work.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Sue Moffitt is who you're hearing from. She's your top-notch Territorian this week. You might have come across her work, Darwin in the Wet. Haven't had too much of a wet season this year, but she loves the place so much that it doesn't matter. Sue, we have a quick fire round of questions for the top-notch Territorians, which we are up to right now.
Okay.
Crack a day, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs down. I love fireworks, but I don't like being out there when people are just everywhere and anywhere throwing fireworks at each other, basically.
Yeah. Feeling unsafe?
It's scary, yeah. We were at East Point the year before last, trying to have a barbecue with friends, and we actually had to get up and leave.
because of...
It was really noisy. There was fireworks going off about 6 feet from us, and it was frightening, actually.
Brekkie Laksa, thumbs up or thumbs down?
No, I can't go past my tropical fruit and yogurt and granola.
Laksa at a different time of the day?
Not really, because I'm not very chilly-minded.
Yeah, okay, all right. All right, this one might have a longer answer. Favourite camping spot in the Northern Territory?
Well, in terms of camping, probably Bewley Rockhole, where you can walk through to Florence Falls, and you've just sort of got everything there. You can play in the Cascades of Bewley and walk around to the plunge pool along the creek there, and it's got everything. You have my open fire in the dry season, and
that's a good spot to camp because you get the whole place to yourself before the crowds arrive for the day trips. Just a little tip.
Yeah. And in Darwin, my favourite place to go is East Point. It's a regular haunt for sunset drinks and watch the storms come in and take my bottle of red wine and my cheese platter. And
gee, you're selling this Darwin place. I want to live there.
Yes. I think it's all about people getting out and then just playing in it,
isn't it? It's a playground. It's our massive, big backyard. Yeah. And within that backyard, final question of the quickfire round, what's the closest wildlife encounter that you've had in the Territory?
Well, we had a brand new car 2 years ago when we were driving across from Cooinda, across the old Jim Road. That's a dirt road, about 100 k's long. And this brumby, it was a herd of them, just dashed across the road, didn't see it at all. And the next minute it's basically sitting on the bonnet of the car.
In what state?
It was all right, because as Ken, my husband, sort of managed to veer sort of behind the horse, and hence the horse sat on the bonnet pretty much, and it ended up on the ground. Then it just shook its head and got up and went to find its friends on the other side of the road.
Jeepers.
But we had nearly $10,000 worth of damage to the car.
Have you encountered brumbies before that experience?
Not in Kakadu.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that.
I have in Litchfield.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
wow, brumbies.
Yeah.
That's not what I was expecting.
They were definitely brumbies. No, I sort of suddenly thought, oh, brumbies.
And then they were gone.
And they stood and watched. It was really uncanny. The one that fell over on the ground, its mates came and closer and closer to the road to have a good look at what was happening. And we thought, oh, a bit confronting, they're thinking that we're hurting their friends sort of thing or something like that. But then once they galloped off, they galloped off.
How many were there?
Oh, about 8.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, how interesting.
Yeah.
Sue Moffitt, your top-notch Territorian, sharing some reflections on the experiences that make this place home for her. Her book is Darwin in the Wet, which you may have come across in the last couple of years. I think there's a new book in the works. Sue, what can you tell us?
Watch this space, not too much. But definitely a Darwin in the Wet flavour.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm sure you'll let us know when it's time to tell more. You get to choose a song to celebrate your life here in the Territory and in the top end. What have you chosen for us?
Well, I'm thinking the extreme weather is really sort of what gets to me, and the quirkiness of this song is very Darwin. It's Mama Kin's Water and Fire. And they go off to a pub and have a drink together.
And tell me about Mama Kin in your kind of musical life. Where does she fit in?
I've been to see her at the festival a couple of times, and I'm not very music-minded, but I just love her. And I bought her CD at last year's festival, and I play it round and around and around and around again. That's it.
She certainly has.
I just bop around in my seat when I hear her, and the vocals are so quirky.
And she certainly has a real affinity with kind of the Territory way of living, I think. She's played up here a couple of times and she always has an excellent audience response. So it's really nice to spend some time with you, hearing about the things that inspire you. Fingers crossed we get a little more rain before the end of the wet season, and if not, that next wet season delivers. And we'll find out more about the new book when you have more to tell us.
Absolutely, that would be brilliant.